Hi guys, today we're going to talk about a few garden hacks. I've been filming these over time as I do these things in my garden, and I'm trying to collect them all together to share it with you. So first of all, today I'm going to share with you how I sanitize my pruners between cutting flowers, even deadheading. Now, I say in the past, I haven't done this. And then I've started getting crown gall. First it was on dahlias. I did not know that you could transfer that bacteria or whatever it is from cutting your dahlia that had it to pruning or deadheading a rose. And then I started getting it on some roses. I lost some beautiful David Austin roses with crown gall. They started failing, dug them up, and yeah, and those the bacteria can live like for 2 years in the soil. Where I have my pink wave petunias, one of those barrels is where that bacteria or the one rose that died from it, and I had to destroy it. Yeah, so now I'm much more careful about sanitizing my pruners. Let me get my pruners and I'll show you how I do it as I deadhead these phlox. Back here are the phlox I want to prune. So first of all, between cuts, this is it's called a fingertip sprayer. Got this at Walmart where they have the travel stuff, like little shampoos and stuff. Anyways, I just spray. This is 91% alcohol. Also, I get it at Walmart. Spray my pruners. I have a rag. This is actually an old washcloth that has just gotten frayed and whatever, so it's in the rag bag now. And I will wipe off my pruners. And then I have a pocket, stick it back in, or I'll hold it in my other hand. And then I'll go cut. Now I wanted to talk about these pruners. I've given up all fancy pruners for these. I went to a rose pruning seminar. The expert there said he had given up all the other pruners that everybody recommends for these. I'll link them. They're on Amazon. Now watch the price. It goes up and down. But yeah, these I totally agree with him. I don't even know what the name of them are. They're not a fancy name you hear a lot, but these I've been using them for 3 or 4 years. I have not had to sharpen them at all, and they are magnificent. So again, I will link them in the description box below. They are worth it. They are on the pricier side, but so are the other ones that are highly recommended by many. Okay, so this one, phlox, I'm just going to deadhead down a ways. These will rebloom beautifully. Sometimes I just throw the debris on the ground to compost in place. And yeah, this will encourage a rebloom. So this one is fading. While I'm in here, I might as well go ahead and, like I said, there is a Monarda that I need to deadhead, spray, and wipe. Now, some people will use bleach. Not only can that stain your clothes or bleach out your clothes, but also it has to sit on them longer to do the job than the alcohol. At least that's what I've read. Now this tip is probably a no-brainer for most people, and that is always wear your gloves. You'll end up taking off the tip of your little finger with your pruners, whereas it would have nipped maybe the tip of my glove and I would have caught it before I did such damage. So I was just in the evening, grabbed my pruners. It was a no stress thing, just a little bit walk around and relax. Grabbed a clump of flowers that needed deadheading. So instead of using my hedge trimmers, which I do a lot when I'm doing groups, I grabbed it and went to cut. And of course the flowers were hiding where my finger was at and I miscalculated. So yeah, an ER bill later, I don't know what my finger is going to look like, but that's okay. So yeah, please do always wear your gloves. So here's a trick I like to use when I plant during the heat of summer. I have a hardy plumbago right there sitting. I'm kind of figuring out where I want to put it, but it's going to be in the 90s today. So here's what I do. After I've planted and made sure my plants got well watered, I'll take a couple of old pots. You can use anything that will keep this raised, what I'm doing now. So I'll put one there, and one over here to cover the area where the new planting is. And then I have this frost cloth, also could be used as shade cloth. And yes, I use that and I'll stretch it. Now this used to be longer, but my husband, the other end of it, he accidentally stapled it to my chicken pen. But it comes in really long lengths, so you can really cover a wide area. Let me get my bricks. I have bricks sitting around all over my garden, and you'd be surprised at how well you use them or how much you use them in the garden. All right, let me get this one over here and stretch this. Now I could use just the 2 pots if it's a narrow area, or I could put out 2 more pots and widen it, and it would cover a huge space. But you see how this, if I pulled it out way over here, had another pot, I could do another. So yeah, that's how I shade freshly planted perennials, annuals, whatever I'm putting in the ground on a super hot day in midsummer, and it gives it a little bit of a break. They'll still get sun through this. These frost cloths are very versatile, so you could use it in the early spring to protect from frost. You can use it here in midsummer to provide shades over newly planted flowers. You can use anything. The upside down pots are just one thing I have sitting around, but there's lots of things as long as it raises it up. There's good airflow. Also, it will help it to the plants. It'll help it to them to get established before they're exposed to the extremes. So after a week, maybe even less, depending on your temperatures, you can remove this and they will be absolutely fine. Or if you wanted to have it on here during like the super hot part of the day and the other part where you get morning sun or evening sun, where it's a little less intense, you could put it on and off depending on how you needed to help your plants along. And also I do this for if I seeded an area and I want it to have a break and get those seedlings going, and it helps to maintain moisture or humidity around that area. And yeah, it just helps that. If you already have humid conditions, you really wouldn't want to encourage humidity necessarily. But I live in a very arid climate and the humidity does help. So that's one of my garden tricks that I thought you might benefit from. That's another great thing for saving larger pots, is if you want to experiment with planting something in a particular area and you don't know if the plants will do well, plant them in a very large pot there, set them there for the summer, watch them and see how well they do. And then you'll know whether you want to plant it in that spot in your garden. And it can save you a lot of heartache of digging up plants that may not be making it in that area. You also could sink them partly into the ground so they benefit from the ground moisture, and they could put roots down through there. It doesn't hurt them when you want to dig that pot up and then put it completely in the ground, not the pot, but the plant. And yeah, but you can get an idea of where, if that plant will do well there. I also have done that. It's one of my tricks, and I'll share it here, is planted plants in pots into the ground, and that protects them from the gophers. If you've been around here long, you know I have a severe gopher problem. And yeah, so that's one way that I protect my precious plants from getting eaten by the gophers. And you never know which plant they're going to target next. They could ignore a plant for 5 years and never touch it. You think, oh, that's a good plant to have. The gophers don't eat it. And then all of a sudden, they start eating them. So you'd never know. It's not very pretty, but it gets the job done. So I wanted to show you the one trick I was talking about. Here is a dahlia that I planted in the ground in a pot. And I just sunk it down in the ground. The roots will go through, but next fall, when I want to take this into my greenhouse to overwinter it, I just pull up the whole pot, I cut it back, and it stays in the greenhouse. And that's what happened with this one this last winter. Had them out in the garden when it was time after the first freeze, pulled them up, and the roots had gone down into the soil, so it's able to absorb the water from the soil below. So it doesn't dry out as quickly as just a pot sitting on top of the ground. This one is in a gopher cage. I was testing to see if the one in the gopher cage would actually grow better than the one sunk into the ground in the pot or not. And then that just might be the route I go for future. The pots are super easy. I could put this in a larger pot. Just digging a hole for a larger pot just takes a little bit more work. but I just wanted to see how this would fare. And yeah, so we'll see. It's just a test run. So I've been asked about my slug traps. This is slugs, snails, and earwigs I catch in these. So here is this is my sourdough starter. It's been stored in the fridge, so it's separated. So let's see if I can stir it up a little bit before we do this. I haven't been making sourdough bread lately because it was so hot and I didn't want to heat up the house with the oven. We don't have air conditioning and we didn't set up our water cooler this year, or swamp cooler, some people call them. I've always called them a water cooler. Anyway, so I'm stirring this together. The hooch, as they call it, that has separated. And the hooch probably could work by itself, but I've always used, I have always used the starter itself. So not just the hooch. Okay, I just put in there maybe 1/4 of an inch, if even that. And then I add water to it so it's halfway full. And then I use the skewer you could use a spoon. I just use the skewer because, sometimes sourdough starter is hard to get off utensils. It's so sticky and gummy. Anyways, so I've mixed it up. It's just a white milky liquid. And I will be sure and put my starter away. I need to make some bread soon. I love making our own sourdough bread. It's so healthy for you. And I get the wheat from, is it Sunrise? I'll put the name across. And it's a vintage wheat, and many people who are gluten intolerant can eat this wheat because of the vintage variety. It is heirloom variety. And yeah, it doesn't upset people's health. Anyway, so I have this, and mine's a little bit fuller than halfway full, but you can just fill it halfway, or I think this one would be 3/4. So this is actually a cat food can. You could use any shallow container, or tuna can, something like that. So let's go place it in the garden where I might have seen some slug trouble. It's been so dry and hot. I haven't had much. I haven't had much at all this year, but these traps have been effective. So I'll go put it out in the garden. So hopefully you can see down here. But beneath these plants here, it's a good place to put it. I don't always bury it, but it's recommended that you bury it down into the soil. That way it's easier. Now I just munched it down in there. And yeah, the next morning I will pull it up. I have a video clip, I hope I can find it, of one that I've pulled up, and it was full of slugs, carcasses, and earwigs, and I've been trying also to limit the roly-polies. I think they're called sow bugs too. They have been more devastating in my garden than slugs and snails, which you might find surprising because they say they don't eat live plants. I have found that not to be true. So anyways, this works, like I said, slugs, snails, and earwigs. So that is one of my garden tips, tricks, hacks. Call it what you will. Another garden trick that I like to use, let me get this shovel out of here, is when I need to stake up floppy plants. See, these Monarda are flopping forward. I get this garden wire. It's coated, it's green, so it blends in. I've used rusty wire, baling wire. I've used all kinds of wire for this. But then I put the stake in. This is a green one. I like the green ones because they blend in better. But all I do is I'll make a hook on one end of the wire. I'll hook it around the post, and then I will just put out a length that I think, okay, I want that to be shorter or close up to the post. So I'll make it to loop to where I want the plants to stay upright to. And then I'll cut it. This is some wire scissors, I call them. They're better than just wire cutters because they cut through the wire mesh that I make my gopher cages with. Okay, so there's one hook, and then I'll make another hook. And then I hook it around. Now you can cut it to any length you need. You could even cut it longer. And sometimes that works because then you can use it for other things later. Like next fall, I'll collect all these wires up that I have around. I wasn't super careful in doing that, but you see how it pulls it back. Now you can tighten it as you need to, or loosen it. And you know what? That is my poppy. The gopher didn't get that one, but I could do that with the daisies here, also with these monarda that are leaning forward. In my garden, it's not unusual for the plants to start leaning because of the sun going behind the tall trees, the evergreens that surround my property. But yeah, very easy. That wire, you get a lot of it for very little. Comes in handy. That's quick and easy, easily to remove. And yeah, I use it with my bamboo canes. I'll show you how I cut bamboo canes to stake up my plants with too. That's great to have bamboo in pots, and you have your own ready-made plant stakes, and it just comes in handy. Plus they're beautiful. So anyways, that is one trick. This is just a T-post, a metal T-post that you get at a garden center or at a feed supply, and it works perfectly. I pound it into the ground with a brick. I'm not too fancy with things. And there you go. A nice support. I could pull it up, draw it up more if I want to. Let me draw it up more just to show. So, and if you feel like it's not staying, you can just wrap that wire around a couple times and it works that way too. So I wanted to show you the one trick I was talking about. Here is a dahlia that I planted in the ground in a pot. And I just sunk it down in the ground. The roots will go through, but next fall, when I want to take this into my greenhouse to overwinter it, I just pull up the whole pot, I cut it back, and it stays in the greenhouse. And that's what happened with this one this last winter. Had them out in the garden when it was time after the first freeze, pulled them up, and the roots had gone down into the soil, so it's able to absorb the water from the soil below. So it doesn't dry out as quickly as just a pot sitting on top of the ground. This one is in a gopher cage. I was testing to see if the one in the gopher cage would actually grow better than the one sunk into the ground in the pot or not. And then that just might be the route I go for future. The pots are super easy. I could put this in a larger pot. Just digging a hole for a larger pot just takes a little bit more work, but I just wanted to see how this would fare. And yeah, so we'll see. It's just a test run to see how well. This one had been in the same size pot as that one, and I put them in the ground. I'm a little late. It would probably, these will do just fine here. I don't need to shade them because the pots have been sitting in this location. They're used to the sun and all of that, and the roots were not disturbed in transplanting them, so they're fine. So here is one of my bamboos in a pot. This is a running bamboo. I have found they grow much more vigorously in pots than clumping, but and you never want to put these out in the garden because they can take over. Yeah, but here is a nice big fat, what do you call these? Culms? Whatever it is. Anyways, cane. And I have to use these loppers. Pruners is too tough to cut through this. So I just will come down here, almost to ground level, and prune it off. And then this is tied up because it was splaying, so it's tied up with some pantyhose strips. But so I'm gonna have to pull it clear of that. And then I will cut off each one of these and it'll make a beautiful cane. This one is already pretty solid. It's not too green, but if it was greener and more pliable, I would let it dry and then it would be perfect as a stake. And I'll cut it, it stays pretty sturdy up here to pretty close to the top of where it's at because it had been trimmed off before. But yeah, but one thing nice about the narrow end is when you stick it down in the soil, you can stick it down pretty far with this sharp end without pounding it in. If you need to pound it in deeper, you can, but these ends, when they're narrower, just sink down into the soil very easily, at least for me. So I'm sure if I had hard clay, it would be more difficult, but yeah, I guess you could sturdy them up with tying them to a piece of rebar or something. I have done stuff like that too. Anyways, so and the bamboo lasts for a long time in the ground. They don't rot, or haven't, at least for me yet. And I've been using them for several years. So that's another garden hack for you. And there's plenty more in here. This one is just starting to grow. So I made room by cutting this away for this one. You can't even see it. I got that in the way. But yeah, this one's a pretty good cut one coming up. This one, look at this one, is so interesting that I had cut before and it turned black. It's beautiful. And yeah, there's some nice big culms. Now for these, I do fertilize quite often and it gives them a lot of heft. They're in a pot so they don't get nutrients from the ground or anything else. And because they're watered so often, the nutrients leach through. So these do require a lot more fertilizer. And yeah, but they grow beautifully and they provide, I have plenty, and they also provide privacy, like a privacy screen in areas. You can just move the pot where you want it to. This one's really heavy, you'd have to have help. But the bigger the pot, the better the plant will do. I have some in smaller pots, they do beautifully, but of course they stay narrower. And so if you want to create a big screen, the big pots is ticket. This one I got at Costco. I love their big pots that they get in the spring. They're relatively inexpensive. They last forever, and they're a great size for plants like this. I think roses in them too would do fabulous. Another tip. So one more tip here. This is an umbrella. It screws into the ground, but I've also used a base, and I have a larger umbrella that at times I use here. I didn't want to get it out of the basement, but this is an area I need to plant. The sun is hot, it's over 90 degrees, and this shade will be perfect to work under as I plant a rose. And then I'll leave the umbrella up over the rose for a while, and that will provide shade for it. But right now, primarily, I'm using this for shade for me. And it's a great trick because it's easy to move around. This one, as I said, just screws into the ground. It has a big screw end on it, so it's easy to move. And as long as the ground is firm, then it works just fine. But I'm gonna plant this rose right here into the ground. I gotta get the gopher cage ready and then start plopping it in. So here is another garden tip, garden hack. Let me get my shovel. Alrighty, in this garden tip, I am not going to be in the camera much. I want you to see this rose. You see this rose? It is floundering. And I love this rose. It's called Pam's Pink for obvious reasons. And yeah, I need to dig it up. I do believe the gophers have been eating on it and I don't want them to kill it completely. So let me reach over here. I have a container I want to put it in. I already have some soil in it, but I need to put it over here, empty it out some. Now this is just my compost from my compost bin, and it's very loose because I used rice hulls in my chicken pen, and this is all composted from the chicken pen. So I have it probably halfway filled up. I may have to take some more out, but this is kind of a 2 tips in 1. I want to tell you about these. These are wool pellets. They hold moisture, but they also slowly release nitrogen. So these will help. They're like, instead of using those polymer crystals that are like plastic that you're putting in your plants, which I don't care to have that in my soil. And in my containers, I use these, I compost the potting soil afterwards. So I don't like it in that either because I don't want it in any of my soil. So no plastic, no polymers. But these act like it, but they're natural, and they break down slowly, and they hold the moisture, and yet they're perfectly safe, organic, and these are grown in the USA. And you see down here, 902, that's nitrogen, but it's very slow, so it won't burn your plants. I have that in the pot, because I want to make sure this stays moist and has some slow release fertilizer in it. So now I'm going to get in here, hopefully I'm not in your way. Oh yeah, I could tell this is sinking down so easy. And I don't mind getting some of this ground cover, this blue star creeper in it too. But yeah, I could just tell how easy that came up, that they have been chewing on it. So yeah, not many feeder roots. So this is a good thing we're doing this. And I'll see about the pot, about where it's going to sit in there. So I could put it down in there. Now what I'm going to do is, this is my Hormex 8. It's a rooting hormone. And I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it on here because I want, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I want it to root. I should check my camera, huh? And I don't want too much, so I'm going to dust it off, because too much is as bad as none at all. Not bad, but you know what I mean. It's not good for it. So let me get rid of what's in here. And yeah, put that down in there. So I got that done. Have the pellets in there, and then this is some more of the compost. And we're just going to fill it up. And this will, I'll water it well. I'll put it in an area that I know I can keep an eye on it. This will regrow roots and it will flourish again. This used to be big and beautiful. It was never tall. It's a short growing one. But yeah, when I saw it floundering like it is, I knew the gophers were getting to it. So that is how you save any plant that the gophers may be eating or something's eating and you want to keep it. Because I cannot find this rose now anywhere, so I want to for sure keep it alive. Now I have another one I'll show you in just a minute that I could tell the gophers are eating on it. So I'm going to get back here. This is the other one. This is my pretty and pink Eden. Do you see how this is all shriveled up? That is because the gophers are eating the, yep, that's part of it too. The gophers are eating the roots. So yeah, I was going to share with you my gopher deterrent trick, but I haven't been utilizing it. So I still have a big problem with them. And so it's kind of pointless, but I could tell you about it, and yeah, then you can try it yourself. If you do it consistently, it does work. So I want you to see this. This is one of the roses that the gophers have eaten to a nub. Okay, so you see that? Look how they have eaten it almost completely. And in fact, this part was under the ground and they've chewed on it as well. So this is where I have to save this. And believe it or not, I can recover this rose. So first of all, dug it up, trimmed it back. This thing was 8 feet tall. So it was climbing up with the trellis with the Zephyrine Druin, and it was doing beautifully. And then when I came back from my trip, it looked dead, or it looked like it was dying, struggling. So I'm going to put it in this tub here. And then I'm going to get some of my organic Rev, which is a root growth stimulant, and I'm going to soak it for a couple hours at least in it, if not overnight. And then I'm going to pot it up just like I did the other one. I could sprinkle a little bit of root hormone on it, which probably, I don't know if that really helps to accelerate rooting or the root growth, but it is supposed to stimulate root growth. So the organic Rev alone is helping a lot. So let me get that. Let me see, I've got a bottle down here. Yeah, here it is. And I will mix up some in my pitcher and water pitcher, and I'll pour it in here and make sure this is covered. All right, have my pitcher of water now and my organic Rev. So I'm going to put, I don't know, a couple ounces in the thing. I don't typically measure. I do have a measuring cup for my fertilizer, so I'm more precise with it. But yeah, this, I'm just going to pour this in here and let it soak. And like I said, I'll do exactly the same way. I will put the compost in the container. So once this has soaked overnight, what have you, I will pot it up the same way I did the other rose. I'll use either my homemade potting soil or I will use a good quality potting soil. I have found that Fox Farms Ocean Forest really works well. It is on the pricey side, but I have found it excellent. Used it for my green stock. I'm very impressed. As the way it holds moisture, it drains well. Yeah, everything's doing great. I'm going to start some seeds in there this week in my green stock. I didn't buy one for years because I thought they were kind of homely. And now I have one and I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm going to start, cool weather plants in it. All right, so I got this soaking. We're going to replant this poor rose and revive it. And this is my pretty and pink Eden climber, and I don't want to lose it. So yeah, if you notice something dying like that, don't be afraid to dig it up, pot it up, and let it recover. I've had to do this many times. All right, so there's that tip. You're gonna have to forgive my chicken. She's excited she laid an egg. All right, here's another garden trick for you, hack, whatever you want to call it. And it's how I have some wooden handled tools. I love them. I prefer them over plastic. And that's just a, I don't know, a personal thing. I have a little cup. This, like some salsa came in this from like a Costco pre-made, I think it's their chicken taco, street tacos. We love them. Anyways, and I have this mineral oil. This one's from Walmart and very inexpensive. And all I do is I put a little bit of in the cup. And this is what I use on a lot of my wood handled tools, but also I've used it like on a wooden crate that I want to put plants in, and I want to protect it from the water. But that's not too loud. I might have to wait. Okay, stop. I'm going to go. I think she was telling off the other chicken. Anyway, so all I do is I have this paintbrush. You can tell it's a well-used paintbrush. It's like a 1-inch. And I just paint it on thickly. I did this on, I have a table back behind the chicken pen that I was setting up a tabletop garden on, just testing out some combinations. And it's raw wood. I think it's made, the top part is made from fence boards, cedar fence boards. And yeah, I just seal it. And then I put a coat of beeswax on it. And that's what I do with these as well. So I'm just going to show you just painting it on there. I will let this sit and absorb for maybe an hour until it's no longer really shiny. That means it's gone into the wood. This is conditioning the wood to preserve it. I have had these tools for like 20 years. And the wood handles are still in great condition. It's still tight here. Yes, I do love them. I don't even know where you can find these tools anymore. I don't even remember where I found them. Now, you notice it's gotten rusty. And how I take care of that is I will get a container, maybe like this, and I will put vinegar in it. And then I will set this in there, down in it, and let it soak. I did that with these pliers. These were completely rusted. Soak them in the vinegar, and then you take a scrubber. Steel wool is like the best. And you just scrub that rust off. And then I'll oil these every now and then just so the rust doesn't come back, especially if I'm storing them for the winter. I'll just oil them really well. And one thing about this, people actually take this as a laxative, etc. So it's food safe. And that's what I liked about it. I use this on, I have butcher block countertops in my kitchen, and that's what I use on it. And then I go back after it's all absorbed, and I will show you, I'll put a little clip where I was doing the box of how then I put the wax on and then buff it out. So yeah, this is already starting to go dull. So I'm just putting on another coat, or what's left in the paintbrush really, on here. And you just, I do it a couple of coats, 2 or 3, until it stops absorbing. That means it's really soaked into the wood. You'd be surprised. You'd think it'd make the handle greasy, but it doesn't. Yeah, I could even do the tabletop here with this oil, and it would help preserve it too. So, have a little bit left over. I'm not going to pour it back in the container. So I have more tools I can go gather up. I have a wood dauber. I'll show you the wood dauber right here. So this is my tub of beeswax. Clapham's beeswax salad bowl finish. So I'm going to try to hold my camera while I do this. I just scoop out a little portion, and then I just rub it into the surface. Still pretty grubby. And then I just continue rubbing it in until I cover the entire bottom of the tub or of the box. So I'm going to continue on, get it done faster than if I hold the phone, and then I'll show you how I buff it out later. So it's been a few hours since I did the layer of the wax. I don't know if you can see in there in the texture the streakiness of it, but there is a fine layer of wax on here, the beeswax. And then I just start rubbing. You could say you're rubbing it off, but really what you're doing is buffing it in. And this wax will actually create a water-resistant shell over the mineral oil that was absorbed into the wood. Look at that. Ooh. I had sprayed it off. You can actually see some of the wax that got into the crevice there. But you just buff it in. Now, why am I sharing this with you? This right here is a dibbler. I had a friend make it from a picket of like a stair rail or something like that. And so yeah, this, you can see how dark it is. That is from me waxing it and then, well, oiling it and then waxing it. And this is what I poke holes if I'm planting like 6-pack plants or plants I started from seed. And that way I don't disturb the soil too much. So yeah. So go ahead and use this for your tools. This is another garden hack for you to use, and it's natural, organic, and no harmful chemicals going in your soil when you use something like this. And in between doing those chores with this, so I don't throw it away, I just put this and the container in a plastic baggie, and I keep it, together wherever I have my tools. So that's how I preserve my wood-handled tools and wooden things. I got to do my shovel. I have a little kid's shovel I love, love, love. And yeah, I've had it forever and I want to keep it going. So there's that tip. I'm trying not to get this too long, and I can come back to do more tips. I was going to show you what I use to spread the gopher deterrent and why I hesitate with that. I'll be right back. So what I do is I put in like half a cup of organic castor oil, put in a teaspoon of soap, like, dishwashing soap, not dishwasher, but like what you use, like Dawn or whatever. And then I fill it up with water and I put the setting on. Let me see what setting I put it on. 4 ounces. That means I have 4 ounces of the stuff, the castor oil. And then I had filled it up with water, and then you attach it to your hose and then you spray the area that you want to deter the gophers in. Now, if you do it consistently, I have a friend who did it and it has worked. I haven't been consistent with it, and that's why I'm still battling the gophers. So I need to get out there, do it again. And again, they say every 7 to 10 days until you notice the activity. It did die down, the activity, when I had done it a couple of times. And then we were traveling. And so eventually they're not supposed to come back because they don't like that area. But other than that, it has worked. So if you want to give it a try, go right ahead. There's granules you can buy, and you reapply, I think, every 14 days. You water it in. Yeah, I've used that in the past. And compared to this year, with not using them at all, they did work. So that's okay. There's also pellets you can put down in the holes and feed the gophers to get rid of them. But if you have critters and stuff that might get one, I don't think that's safe. So, all right. I think I'm going to wind this tips and tricks video up here, and I will see you in my next video. And have a great gardening season, rest of the season. This is the end of August. And yeah, we are going to get a big, huge cool down next week. It's been in the 90s this week. And next week, I think Friday, 2 days from now, it's going to drop to 75 degrees for a high. And then our nights are going to get really cold. So the leaves are going to start turning on the trees. So I think fall's coming early. We'll see. All right, I'll see you in my next video.